Hi everyone, I'm Chad, and welcome to the second iLogic tutorial that I'm making for Catomatic.com. Today we're going to build a bookcase. I've already started. I made some IPT files and an assembly file. I created a couple parameters in those files, but that's about it. The bookcase is going to consist of, and I've got it down here, two side pieces, a top piece. There'll be a base support pieces down at the bottom for a small base on the bookshelf, and then there'll be the shelf of the bookshelf that we're going to make. And then of course I've got an assembly for all that. So let's get started. On the case, I created some parameters. I've got a case height, I've got a case depth, and then I have a board thickness. So our bookcase height is going to be 48 inches, our depth will be 12 inches, our thickness of the boards are going to be 3/4 of an inch. So what I'm going to do, what's important here when we're creating iLogic parts, we're going to use iLogic to control these parts. You want to use origin planes as much as possible because constraining to surfaces doesn't work too well in iLogic because sometimes the surfaces will disappear and constraints can blow up a lot. So you want to use origin planes whenever possible. So that's what we're going to do. And I'm going to create my side piece right off of this origin plane, and I'm going to make it off the side, and I want it to, basically I want to think about those XYZ planes in the way in which they're going to be used. So I'm going to draw, a rectangle for my side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to imagine that the back side of my bookcase is my XY plane, and that'll come out, so the bookcase will come out from that plane, and then I'll have my bookcase centered on the other planes. So I'm going to constrain this endpoint of the bookcase down to the corner there, and then I'm going to simply make this the case height. I think I use case height, yep. And then I'm going to use case depth. There we go. So I've got a fully constrained side. I'm going to hit finish sketch. Now this plane here, I want this plane to be, whatever plane I'm using. If this side is on the left or the right, the plane is going to be the outside edge of the case. So I'm going to extrude, and I'm going to have it coming towards me, and I am going to do that the board thickness. There we go. So there's my side piece. That's set. I'm going to do the top, and again I want these pieces to be the way that they're going to appear in the model. So the top is going to run along this plane, and so I'm going to, like I said, I want that I want everything centered on the bookcase, coming out from the left to right, and I want the back edge to be the XY plane. So I'm going to constrain the center point of the top piece to the center, my origin 0, 0. I also have a parameter in here called case width. So that gives us the width, and of course we have the case depth again. I got to spell it right. There. And I'm going to extrude this, and I'm going to extrude it down because I want that top plane to be the top of my case. So we're going to have board thickness. Alright, so there's my top piece. I'll save that. The base support. Now the base support, we're going to get into a little bit more info here. I'm going to do again, this is the X1. The base support is going to run the length of the bookcase, so I'm going to have it run back here. And I am going to draw a rectangle this way, and again I'm going to constrain the center because I want it to be centered on the planes left to right. Of course I can't find my center point. There it is, and we will put it there. So now in here I've got some parameters, and what did I have? I have base length of 1 inch right now, and we know that's going to be somewhere around 48. I'm not sure exactly where it's going to be. I'm just going to make it 46 for now. I got my base height set at 3, and I'm going to make the thickness of this board different. I'm going to make the board thickness on here a 1/2 inch because we don't actually see that one. It's just a little base. It doesn't need to be as thick, and I want it to be a little bit different. So we're going to have, I don't remember what I called it, base length. We can list our parameters, of course, and find our base length. There it is. And then I had base height of 3 inches. Alright, and I'm going to extrude that. Now I want that again to come at me, so I'm just going to make that the board thickness, and say OK. So now I have that piece as well. I'm going to hit save. Now the thing that I want to do is I want this length to fit in between my sides on my bookcase. So I need to do a little math, so I'm going to add an iLogic rule. So I'm going to come down to my iLogic browser, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to add rule. And my rule is going to be named dims. I name most of my rules dims because I'm doing dimensions and whatnot, and I just find it to be an easy way to go. Now, last time in here we talked about the different areas of the browser. I'm going to go up here. You can see that I've got a base support, which is the part that I'm working in, and I can click on user parameters, and you can see I've got all my parameters that I've made. Now what I want to do is I want to calculate this base length. Okay, I want to calculate the base length, so I know that that's what I want to do. So I'm going to double click right here on base length, and I get my base length pops up down in my rule, and I'm just going to say base length equals something. And what's it going to equal? Well, it's going to equal the case width. I can again double click on case width, and I get that case width down here, and it's going to be case width minus, and I know that it's case width, and I've got the side thickness. This is going to be the thickness of the side pieces, so I'm going to have side thickness times 2, because I know that the case width minus 2 of those thicknesses is what I want the base length to be. So right now we go here, come back, and of course it is 46 inches is what I had it, but we know that the side thickness is going to be 3/4. I changed that to 3/4, and you can see that my length changed to 46.5. You can also see now that I have a driving rule here, and that's the dims rule that I just created. And that dims rule, see, I can change this to 42. I hit enter, it's going to change back because this dims rule is going to change it back every time. So you can see when I updated, my part just lengthened a little bit. So that's where that was our first iLogic rule. I'm going to hit save on there, and we're going to come back to our shelf. Now our shelf is we're going to have the shelf is going to basically stretch the exact same length as that base length. It's going to be inside the sides, and it's going to go across the whole thing. So we will create a new side. I do want it to be on this plane. Again, basically the same thing. I want that back plane to be on the back side. I'm going to constrain the center point to the origin point. I've got some parameters. I've got parameter case width, case depth, and board thickness. So I'm going to hit D for back here, and this is going to be, actually, I'm going to leave that be. I need a parameter. I've got case width, I've got case depth, but what I need is I need shelf length. Right? We need shelf length. So I'm going to go back here, and we need another rule to make that happen. Again, I'm going to call this a dims rule in the same different part, same part name, it's okay. I'm going to click on my user parameters, and I'm going to say shelf length equals case width minus and board thickness times 2. Now you see me using parentheses, and that's because I'm telling this that I want it to do that multiplication first. It's going to multiply the board thickness times 2, and then it's going to subtract that from the case width. That's basically a lot of the stuff that you're going to see in here is going to be just standard algebra. I'm going to list parameters, and I'm going to get my shelf length. So there's my shelf length of 46.5, and I'm going to have my case depth. I'm not planning on putting a back on this bookshelf right now. I'm just making an open, just a very basic bookshelf. So I'm going to extrude. Now I'm going to extrude this down. I'm going to use that top plane is going to be the top of my shelf at all times. So I'm going to put that here, and I'm going to say board thickness. Oops, not plus. Okay, so there's my shelf. Alright, so for that tutorial we made a couple parts. We added a couple of rules. You know, we made some rules to calculate some lengths and do a couple things that way. So that was our very first iLogic rules. In the next tutorial I'm going to assemble this bookshelf, and we'll create some more rules to control the actual length, so we can control it from the top. Everybody wants to do a top-down design, and that's what we're going to be doing here. Is we're going to, from the main cabinet, the bookcase assembly, we'll be able to control the size of the bookcase and have our parts change along with it. So, like I said, in the next tutorial, we'll go through that cabinet assembly. Thanks, and I hope to see you back.